Blessings, beloveds. It's Anastasia here again. I'm going to do a short video for you on the planet Jupiter. And I've chosen to speak about Jupiter today, although I said in my last video I'd do a part 2 of Pluto. I still intend to do that, but that's just going to take a little side seat for the moment. The reason I've decided to speak about Jupiter is, well, it's a lot more uplifting. And Jupiter has just changed signs, so it's in the last couple of days it's entered the sign of Scorpio. And I just want to give people a little introduction to how we can tap into the Jupiter energy and use it to our advantage, basically. So before I start talking about what Jupiter in Scorpio means, or Jupiter in general, I guess I just want to point out a couple of things. So the first thing is that Jupiter has a 12-year cycle. So from the time you were born, whatever place, house and sign it was located in, 12 years later it'll do a complete lap. So when you were born, the first Jupiter return you will have will be at the age of 12. And the following one will be at the age of 24, and then you'll have one at 36, and so on and so forth. It is important to know that, because when we have a Jupiter return, it often presents us with opportunities to really expand ourselves. I mean, naturally when we're 12 years old, life is very different to when you're 24 and 36 and so forth. So we're always needing to put things into context, such as age, I suppose gender, country of birth, you know, all those sorts of things always play a role in how our chart is expressed. So Jupiter has a 12-year cycle, as I said, so it spends one year in each zodiacal sign. So we've just finished experiencing Jupiter in Libra, and I wonder how that was for each of you. It was actually pretty good for me personally, and now we've just entered Scorpio, so we're going to have Jupiter in Scorpio for about 12 months. Some things to... Actually, before I go there, I just want to just show you something. So, can you all see the glyph for Jupiter, which is that one there? And this is what makes up the glyph. So the half circle and the cross of matter actually create the glyph for Jupiter, or Zeus, which is the Greek name. That's important to know because, just one more look-see, if you notice that the cross of matter and the half circle that make the Jupiter glyph, you can notice that the half circle is above the cross of matter, meaning it's above the horizon. And that's a really key factor to understanding how the energy of Jupiter works, because Jupiter is all about expanding our horizons, expanding our experience here on Earth beyond what we can possibly imagine with the left brain, because Jupiter is very much our right brain. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces, so it rules those two signs. Although since Neptune was discovered in the 1800s, it was assigned as rulership to Pisces. But as an astrologer, and I'm confident in saying that most astrologers would use the dual rulerships that some signs seem to have. And in this case, Jupiter rules Pisces, but so does Neptune. So it rules Sagittarius and Pisces, and it is considered to be what's called the greater benefic. And just before I explain that, I guess it's probably important to mention that whilst it rules Sagittarius and Pisces, that means it's in rulership. Now, planets are in rulership in certain signs, and in certain signs they're in detriment. In certain signs they're in what's called fall, and in certain signs they're in what's called exaltation. And those are essentially those elements derive from what's called essential dignities and debilities, and that really derives from ancient astrology. but it is also used in modern astrology, because to understand the rulerships and detriments and falls and exaltations and so forth really enables you to understand how well that planet is going to do in a particular sign. So if you were born with Jupiter in Sagittarius or in Pisces, then you had Jupiter in its prime position, in its rulership position, which would really point to the individual benefiting extremely from the energy of Jupiter. Now, how does one benefit from Jupiter? I guess actually before I talk about that, let's just talk a little bit about some of the things that Jupiter is associated with. Now, Jupiter is the Roman name and Zeus is the Greek name. So Zeus was the king of Olympus, the king of the gods. So he was the one that ruled everything beyond the lower levels of existence. So he was the god of thunder, god of wisdom, god of truth, god of law, god of justice, god of abundance, god of philosophy, education of the higher mind. So any kind of learning or study or teaching that takes you beyond the left brain Gemini mind is all Jupiterian. So, and don't forget that, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, which is the 9th house, and the 9th house is the Sagittarius house. So what sits directly opposite? It's Gemini. So what we're looking at when we're looking at the 9th house, Sagittarius and Jupiter, we're looking at that part within us, that aspect within us that is really inspired through truth and wisdom, and really seeks on their journey throughout life to explore that wisdom and truth, and to continuously expand beyond what appears to be, or beyond appearances is a good way of putting it. That's what Jupiter enables us to do. It enables us to tap into beyond what appears. Now, the interesting thing also is that I showed you the glyph, okay, which is that one. Now, I'm going to draw you the glyph of Saturn just to show you the exact opposite. So that's Saturn right there. And if you can see, it's made up of exactly the same half circle and cross of matter, except that the half circle is now below the horizon. And that's because Saturn is an Earth type of energy and planet. So Saturn and the sign that it rules, Capricorn, is what really connects us here to this Earth plane, which has its benefits and it has its detriments as well. The one main thing being that it keeps us very limited to this particular reality, as though this is the only reality that exists, when in fact it's not. This is not the main game in life. This is an experience that we have through this physical body, through this vehicle, which Saturn poses enormous limitations on us. It almost tricks us into thinking that this is it, there's nothing else. But it is Jupiter's energy that enables us to have that sense of meaning, purpose, belief, faith, adventure, expansion, exploration, growth, abundance, all those wonderful, wonderful words which translate into wonderful experiences, provided we are tapping into the Jupiter energy. Now, one could say, well, why doesn't everyone feel, totally inspired, and why isn't everyone so, sort of goal orientated to expand themselves and to expand the world? And look, there are many people that are, but yes, certainly there are many people that are not. Now, one thing to understand about Jupiter is that Jupiter is a benefic planet. It's a benevolent planet. So it brings forth unlimited abundance and expansion and growth. However, if Jupiter is in its detrimental fall, which is basically Gemini, Virgo, and Capricorn. Those three signs, Jupiter doesn't seem to do that great in. Let me expand on that and just be a little bit more clear. Jupiter will always do really well because it's a benefic planet. It's the greatest planet. And just to diverge a little bit, Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. And so the characteristics of even the scientific components of planets are very connected and descriptive to what they represent and how they manifest within us. Because that quote, as above, so below, literally just means that everything is within us, and as we evolve and become more conscious and aware, we stop projecting everything out there and start remembering our own essence and our own being. So Jupiter is the biggest planet. And that's a really important point, because when we're talking about Jupiter experiences in our life, they're big, they're grand, they're bigger than life, as it were. So a person who's very Jupiterian, what do I mean by that? So perhaps a person who is a Sagittarius, and maybe has Jupiter in Sagittarius as well. So therefore Jupiter's right next to their sun in their birth chart, meaning there is a conjunction between the sun and Jupiter. That's a very Sagittarian, Jupiterian person. And what we would see in a person like that is somebody who's the absolute optimist in life. And there's not a lot that can get this person down. Now, so the expression happy-go-lucky, that's Sagittarius, that's Jupiter in a nutshell. And I have one for Capricorn and Saturn, and I'm sorry to all the Capricorns out there. But the one for Saturn type of energy is unhappy, unlucky, just how it is. We're talking about two very different energies. You know, Saturn is connected to fear and confinement and limitations. It is connected to a lot of other things which serve great purposes and meaning as well. But in order to tap into that deeper esoteric level of Saturn, we must go into the esoteric world, into the deeper realms within our own selves. So things like alchemy and magicians are actually ruled by Saturn. You know, so Saturn is not it's not all bad, and it doesn't have to be a negative experience all the time. It has got, you know, lots of benefits, but I don't want to focus on Saturn. I'm talking about Jupiter today. So, you know, the opposite to Saturn being Jupiter in terms of energies is that Jupiter is what will inspire us, it will uplift us, it will motivate us, it will get us focusing on our goals, it will get us seeking truth, wisdom, expanding ourselves, and that journey actually, it doesn't end, you know, hence why we have this understanding or belief, you could say, well, not all of us maybe, but certainly quite a few of us understand that we are on this evolutionary path. It's not like we are born and, you know, we have a life and we learn everything and that's it, game over. It's impossible to experience everything and to learn everything in one life, isn't it? I think we can all agree to that, at least, anyway. So, back to Jupiter. Now, think about the image for Jupiter in terms of the centaur, the half horse, half man, which is Sagittarius. So what we have is a half man, half horse figure, and in every picture that we see him shooting an arrow, and the arrow is always shooting up beyond the horizon. And that again is a meaning and a description to the energy of Jupiter and Sagittarius, always looking for that expansion and what's going to take them further and further and further, where there's no boundaries. sky is not the limit when we're talking about Jupiter and Sagittarius. Sky is the limit, would be Saturn. Saturn rules clouds. So, yeah. Okay, just some other things that Jupiter connects to. Belief systems, religion, philosophy, teachers, preachers, speakers of truth and wisdom, inspiration, astrology. There's loads and loads, but I just want to give you just a little taste so you can get a feel for it. So just to go back a moment again, now I mentioned that Jupiter rules Gemini and Sagittarius and is in detriment in Virgo and Gemini, and I just realized I didn't finish what I was saying earlier. And Jupiter is also in exaltation in Cancer and therefore in fall in Capricorn. So just to give you a simple explanation for that, when planets are in rulership, it's like the king being, in his throne, in his castle, and being at his greatest in terms of being a king. All the things that the king symbolizes. So when you've got a planet in rulership, that's how it operates. It operates with great dignity. And what it means is that the planet that is in a sign that it rules, it gets the most out of that energy. So if you have Jupiter in Sagittarius or in Pisces, and I've touched on this briefly before, we're talking about a person who is really inspired, motivated, optimistic, adventurous, courageous, expansive, and it's an infectious type of energy, because let's face it, a very simple example is when you are around a person who is really optimistic and has a real thirst for wisdom and truth and knowledge and life, and just sees, abundance and optimism in everything, how can you not, love to be around that kind of energy? I don't think I've met anyone that doesn't love to be around that. And, the opposite of that, of course, is, when we are around a negative person who is, very Saturnian, Capricorn, which is a really heavy sort of energy. And when it's operating at a very low level, it's repression, oppression, depression, and there's one more, and suppression, the 4 pressions. So that's the kind of energy that we get from Capricorn. Well, Saturn, when it's operating at a very lower astral level, so from the lower chakras, so the 3 lower chakras, when those chakras are operating at a very low level and they're not cleared and cleansed, it's very dense and it's very heavy and it's quite dark, and yeah, that's Saturn in Capricorn at its worst, basically. As I said before, there are wonderful qualities about Saturn in Capricorn as well, but we're not going to go into that for today. Okay, so in your own birth chart, Jupiter points to where you seek truth, where you will expand your consciousness, your being, your whole experience, where you will have confidence, where you will have opportunities, where abundance will show up, where you will feel inspired, where your goals are firmly inherent. So house placement, sign placement of Jupiter in your birth chart. And essentially where you wish to expand and explore your horizons and grow on a much bigger level than what appears, because what appears is very limiting. We look at the world out there and we see certain things, and those things become, structures, systems, organizations, limitations, rules, all that sort of stuff that really stifles a person's spirit. Now, Jupiter is the opposite to that, so it's what enables us to get out of that dense, heavy energy and really shoot for the stars, so to speak. So, whatever sign and house your Jupiter is in is going to really talk about how you approach opportunities, how you attract them, how you expand your whole life, what sort of truth and wisdom, are you connected to? Do you understand and believe? Do you have faith in yourself and in life? Do you have self-confidence? Confidence is Jupiter. Think about it. It rules Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius, is known to be, apart from its beautiful qualities, relating to confidence, optimism, generosity, giving, constantly giving, because they've got so much abundance that they don't need to hold it all to themselves. They're not greedy. They're very generous people. But, some of that can be over committing and over promising things that they sometimes struggle to deliver. Not because they don't want to. Their intention is always there in the right way. But they just may not have the resources to fulfill the promises that they make. That's a very Jupiterian, Sagittarian type of experience. So, in terms of trust, do you trust life? And do you trust yourself in your life? Is very much a Jupiter expression or experience. So if you've got a difficult Jupiter, then it is fair to say, looking at it in without looking at anything else at the moment, because like anything in astrology, we always look at the whole birth chart. We don't just look at one thing in isolation, because nothing works in isolation. Everything's connected. But needless to say, when you have Jupiter in a sign where it doesn't operate very well, including a house where it doesn't operate very well, what happens is that Jupiter loses out. So it'll give and give and give and give and give, because that's what Jupiter does. It's just unlimited abundance. But it will, at some stage, it'll pull back when it's in a sign that it's not happy in, which is Gemini, Virgo, Capricorn. So, and I have seen this in people's charts, readings that I've done through the years. I've seen when a person has had, for example, Jupiter in Gemini on the midheaven. The midheaven is the top part of the chart, which shows our life direction, purpose, vocation, etc. And it can be our professional life as well, certainly how the world sees us. So Jupiter up there on that angle makes Jupiter very prominent. It's highly elevated. So anything elevated up the top there on the what we call the midheaven is an energy that is really plugged in to the world out there. So the person gets a lot out of that planet's meaning and energy. So Jupiter up there would essentially point to a person who, they could be a preacher, a teacher, a priest, a philosopher, lawyer, lots of other different things as well. But on another level, apart from the descriptive pathways that might come into that person's life in terms of vocation, career, professional world, it's also an indication that that person comes across a lot of opportunities in the field of profession. So, because Jupiter, wherever he's sitting, he's going to bring us benevolence, abundance, opportunity. When he's not in a happy sign, though, he's going to give us, as I said, but then there might be a bit of a fall or a pushback as well. And in order to really understand that, again, you need to look at, you know, the whole chart and the person, etc. But the example I was just about to use, Jupiter in Gemini on the midheaven. This person really has had no problem in landing gigs, landing jobs in their field. Whilst it seems like a great opportunity initially, it turns out that it's at a cost in some kind of way. And that's probably the best way to put when Jupiter is in its detrimental fall, what happens. And what happens is it delivers, but it delivers at a cost. And sometimes the cost is it overrides the good stuff. Sometimes, not always. So, you know, again, you need to look at the whole chart. Okay, so talked about Jupiter ruling the 9th house, being the which is the Sagittarius house, which is the right brain, which is the intuitive brain. It's, if you think about its opposite house, which is Gemini, Gemini is highly skilled and absolutely incredible at perceiving and noting and being aware of details. And for some, that's not so important, particularly if you are very Jupiterian or Sagittarius-like. You're not really interested in details. You're interested in looking at the bigger picture of life and meaning and purpose on a general sort of level, and of course in your own life, in your own world. But as a result, what happens to the Jupiter Sagittarian energy, because it's so focused on this broader, expansive view and experience, it fails to often see what's in front of its very eyes, which is the finer details of things. And it's not always a problem, but sometimes it can be, as you can imagine. It depends on, you know, what's going on for the person and where they are. So if they were in a job where they needed to pay attention to these finer details, well, you know, that would be a problem, wouldn't it? So Jupiter is what inspires us, what gives us that connection to life, with faith and wisdom and truth and belief and knowingness. It's an inner knowing that everything's okay, that despite the appearances, despite the chaos, the struggles, the whatever that we see and are subjected to, it's okay. There's a fundamental inner connection and knowing that my life's okay despite what's actually going on out there. Not everyone feels like that, you know, and it's really connected to the state of Jupiter in your own natal birth chart. Okay, I'm just going to finish up here, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about Jupiter in Scorpio at the moment. So just in summary though, you need to know what sign Jupiter is in, what house it's in, and what aspects it's making to other planets, to get a full picture of how it's working for you in your life. And the other thing that I'd like to say as well, and I can say this from personal experience, I've got Jupiter in Sagittarius. I'm very blessed in that way to be born with Jupiter in rulership, and I've been able to really connect to that Jupiter in Sagittarius. In fact, when I think about the 12-year cycles, and I look at my life at 12, at 24, 36, I can actually see the incredible opportunities that presented to me in my life at that time, and I was so receptive and so open to embracing them that I actually made the most out of those Jupiter returns, and I plan to continue to do that. And that's the key. If we are not if we're not in touch with our Jupiter, we're not really growing or expanding. We remain quite limited. So it's really useful to know the element, as in, you know, is your Jupiter in a water sign? Is it in a fire sign, an earth sign, or an air sign? Because whatever element it's in as well is going to give you the different seeking that Jupiter has, because Jupiter are all seekers of truth, and ultimately truth lies within. But what is it about the element that Jupiter is in for you that will enable you to go on that quest, which will initially start off as an external quest, but eventually it'll come back to your own truth within you. So Jupiter in Scorpio at the moment, in water signs, I just want to read this to you. Inner faith, because Jupiter is our sense of inner faith, and, you know, whether we have faith in life, in what's called God, Goddess, or whatever other name you wish to use for a higher source, consciousness, you know, whatever, I don't care, you can use whatever word you like. I mean, it all points to the one source, the one truth. Although Krishnamurti said, had a wonderful quote, and he said, truth is a pathless land. And I really like that quote, because it kind of is. We have to find our own truth, but there is truth out there, that's the point. And that's what Jupiter enables us to tap into personally, and certainly collectively as well. So in the water signs, it's just entered Scorpio. Inner faith is stimulated through depth of emotional experience and through positive expression of one's compassion and imagination. Opportunities come when one is sensitive and caring towards others, and when one intuitively follows one's inner yearnings. So, because we're talking about the water signs, right? Water is all inner. Fire is out there. Air is out there. Earth is inner, but out there. That probably doesn't make much sense. But look, doesn't matter. I just want to stick to the water signs for now. Well, earth signs out there, what I mean is that earth is earth, right? It's this physical flesh, this experience in this body. This is earth. So it has an internal and external function or process. I guess that's what I was trying to say. So, okay, Jupiter in Scorpio, here we go. This is a collective experience in that Jupiter is in Scorpio at the moment, so everyone's going to experience Jupiter in Scorpio. And how that's going to be is going to, well, how that will be seen or experienced on a personal and individual level is where is the sign Scorpio located in your birth chart. So wherever Scorpio is in your birth chart, Jupiter will be transiting that house for the next 12 months. So first of all, Jupiter in Scorpio is really asking us to open up and take risks with our feelings. And that's, you know, that's not an easy thing to do for a lot of people. I personally live in the world of feelings every single day. I've got Venus in Pisces, so I'm really comfortable with feelings, even though it's a state of agony and ecstasy quite frequently. I'm still very in touch with it. And all water sign people are. I'm not a water sign, I'm a fire sign by sun sign, but Venus in Pisces, and because of all the aspects Venus has, it's a very strong planet in my chart. So going back to Jupiter in Scorpio, we will be asked to take risks emotionally and to go into deeper worlds within our own selves. And if we're in a relationship or a marriage, we will be asked to penetrate and go much deeper into those worlds of intimacy. And intimacy has many faces. Intimacy is not merely the sexual act, and then again, even the sexual act has various approaches and approaches. I guess I'll leave it at that. So we're being asked to go deeper, to let go, and to trust. our own feelings and our gut feeling, especially because Scorpio is very much about the gut feeling on things. So Scorpio has really strong hunches about situations. Now, when we're talking about Scorpio, the Scorpio house or Scorpio sign energy has many different dimensions to it. When we're talking about the Scorpio house, it is actually other people's resources. So it can therefore connect to business as well. So this could be an opportunity for people over the next 12 months to explore. If you're in the business world, this just might be an opportunity to get more out of the current business you are in by actually tapping into something quite deeper. And if you can just think about it like this, people often might remark, in the world of business, well, don't bring any emotion into it. Or as a professional in certain fields, the comment will often be, I can't get emotional about this. And whilst there is, there's truth in that and there's relevance in that at times, but emotions are very different to feelings. Okay, so emotions, first of all, the word emotions comes from the word emotive, which its root meaning essentially means what stirs you up or takes you out of, right? So emotions stir us up and take us out of ourselves. And emotions are things like, getting pissed off, frustrated, upset, angry, feeling offended, those sorts of emotions that are very, what I would consider surface ego-based. But when we're talking about feeling, we're not talking about the emotions that disturb us. That's actually what I really wanted to say, that emotions can be very, very disturbing, but feelings are the opposite to that, because feelings take us into something much deeper that is calm, that has real substance, that is not ego-based, where connection lives and thrives, where we can experience oneness, with the world and with others, where we can connect very deeply with people, where we can have great insight and understanding into ourselves and into others and into life overall, the whole world. So you can see there's a real distinction between emotions and feelings. So Jupiter in Scorpio is all about feelings, and in Scorpio it's the abyss. So it goes extremely deep if you allow it. Now, what are some of the challenges? Some of the challenges are that Scorpio can be a sign that has a tendency to get paranoid, mistrusting. So Scorpio is quite challenged when it comes to opening up and trusting another. And this is the very thing that we are going to have to do while Jupiter is in Scorpio. We're going to have to open ourselves up, trust, and go into that deeper part within us where those fleeting little ego emotions are nowhere to be found, but where there is something much calmer, more connected, more deeply rooted to source and truth, which can really give us a great connection to our intuition as well. So I think in the world of business there can be great benefit for those that take some risk in exploring things on a deeper level within their own selves, and certainly if they're working with others as well. And it's also about really listening to your gut, to your hunches, because Scorpio rules that gut feeling and that intuition as well. And I think when we're talking about intimacy in the world of feelings and relationships, it is an opportunity for people to have deeper encounters of intimacy where they've perhaps never ever even thought about going before. So, I mean, those are very general statements because I'm just talking about Jupiter in Scorpio as a whole. But we need to then, if you were to apply it to yourself individually, you'd look at, well, where is Jupiter in your birth chart? So, is it in your first house? Is it transiting your second house? Well, let's just give an example of Jupiter in Scorpio transiting the second house. So this would be an opportunity for you to actually perhaps invest in some further things into your life that you're investing in. It would enable you to expand your value systems as well, expand your resources in general, really. Material resources, but the second house has a spiritual substance to it as well, which is not often spoken about. We often associate the second house with material values, but the second house is also spiritual values. So it depends where you're vibrating. I said to a guy not that long ago, we're operating at very different frequencies, and he didn't like that. He didn't understand it, but he didn't like it either. And that's the thing, you know, when you are operating at different frequencies with another, the energy just won't mesh, it won't connect. Now, why did I bring that up? Oh yeah, second house, spiritual values, material values. So wherever Jupiter is transiting in your chart, it's saying that this is the area for the next 12 months that you have opportunity to expand and grow and invite abundance into your life and open your mind and go beyond the boundaries of fears or limitations that normally hold you back. And that's the thing, you know, with Jupiter, we've got to take risks, okay? So a person who has strong Sagittarius or Jupiter in their chart, they're naturally inclined to take risks. They just live on that level. That's where they operate from. So they see opportunities like that. Their opportunities are around them all the time. They're intuitively plugged in, and because they have a really high sense of faith and belief, they don't tap into that lower astral stuff that poses limitations and fears and restrictions and holds people back. They operate from a much higher level. That's why Jupiter can be so amazing for you if you tap into it in your own life as it's transiting around your chart. But, you know, we've got to add some consciousness to it as well. If, you know, Jupiter could just transit an area in your birth chart, so an area of your life, and you're not paying any attention to it. You're not sort of sitting there and reflecting on, pondering on perhaps some goals or visions or things you want to expand about yourself and your life, what you want to change. You know, if we don't do those things, well, they don't just naturally, you know, just fall into place for us. We need to work with the energy and make the most of it and invite it and embrace it and play with it and work with it. So as Jupiter's transiting your chart, everywhere it lands, it's saying, okay, here you go. This area of life for the next 12 months, you can potentially tap into some opportunity to grow and develop and expand and receive abundance, you know. So it's a beautiful energy. Jupiter is the easiest, most benevolent planetary energy out of all the planets, and it's lower sort of, it's not lower, but it's lesser is probably a better word, is Venus, you know, because Venus is another beautiful planet. It's about beauty and art and sensuality and sensual delights and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, Jupiter in Scorpio, opportunity to tap into a much deeper internal world that can potentially help you grow and deepen your connections and experiences with people as well. If if we don't go within and explore those deeper realms, then we're missing out on certain things in life. We're missing out on being able to connect on certain levels, aren't we? We're just operating from that surface, safe, secure level. But we have to take risks. Life itself is a risk. No one's guaranteed anything in life. Nothing. We are born, and I don't like to say we die, because we don't die, but we leave the body. So nothing is guaranteed in any way, shape or form. So we're always taking risks. Some of us more than others. And I'm not talking about being an idiot either. I'm just talking about tuning into and tapping into the world of abundance and opportunity that is seen and experienced through Jupiter, which is all bountiful, has no limitations, and has all the resources, and everything you need is in that planetary energy from the level of abundance and expansion. So yeah, have a look at where your Jupiter is natally, and have a look at where it's transiting at the moment as well, and see what sense you can make out of that. However, feel free to ask me any questions. Astro.net enables you to draw a free horoscope chart, so you don't need a computer program. Please like and share if you did like this video, and I will do Pluto Part 2 very soon. So happy Jupiter in Scorpio, everybody, and I hope that you're able to go into those deeper realms of life and the mysteries that lie within your own self and within life, where you can potentially grow and experience some amazing opportunities and abundance. Okay, blessings and bye for now.